Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. MLB is back, and you know what? So are we. Well, I've got my core here for Tuesday night, so if you're looking for the regulars, look on your screen if you're on YouTube because you got it with myself, Mr. Opinion Rick Curdy. Welcome back, Rick.
Hey guys, I missed everyone. Hope you're all doing well.
All right, George Icorn.
Good to see you guys.
All right, Mr. Katz.
Good to see you all.
And we know that he's wearing his Yankee cap tonight if you're watching on YouTube. And we don't know who's on the front end of that cap, but we know on the back of it is Jordan Long. Welcome back, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Scott. It's exciting. I mean, spring training is here. At least players have, reported. So baseball is back.
It sure is. And I really feel that we have an excellent crew that we're going to be able to sustain throughout the year. And I couldn't be more prouder of what we have. George Icorn will fill in when somebody's not available. Every now and then he'll be the fifth person on here. And everybody on this broadcast here is definitely capable of doing multiple shows. And when you have that kind of versatility, it makes a person like me very proud. Why am I wearing a Durham Bulls hat? Well, number one, I believe it's definitely one of the best baseball movies of all time. And yes, Eric, you can go out and bring out what you have.
I just happened to have it sitting here because I was watching it the other night.
Oh, were you really? Wow.
I was.
So there he is, Mr. Cat.
I think it's the anniversary edition. I'm not positive.
My favorite is Mr. Baseball with Tom Selleck, a very underrated baseball movie.
That's actually a funny movie. That's actually a funny movie.
Yeah, well, let's stay on course with Durham Bulls hat. And by the way, folks, just so you know, I didn't get this in North Carolina. It's not like all of us broadcasters are making mega dollars here like a lot of people. I found it at a truck stop for $6, and boy, it was just too good to pass up. So, what can I say? Go to truck stops and you can go to the clearance part, and then you can find some pretty good caps pretty cheap. We'll start off the show by sending a rest in peace to Tim McCarver. Tim McCarver, I believe, was on 2 World Series teams, wasn't he? I think the Detroit Tigers.
He was on the. He's better known for when he was on the Cardinals. I think he was one of the guys traded in the Curt Flood deal, the one where Curt Flood refused to be traded and eventually went to court to get the wheels rolling in free agency.
Yeah, well, Tim McCarver, George, I believe he played the '68 World Series against the Tigers, right?
Yeah, he sure did. They won. The Cardinals won it all in '67, and then they repeated as NL champions, but lost to the Tigers in that exciting 7-game series. And yep, Tim was the catcher. For St. Louis.
Yeah, for Bob Gibson. What an incredible team they had. Brock and all that. Oh, my gosh. Seriously. But a lot of people in our day and age know him as a tremendous broadcaster. Made it. Mm-hmm. I believe he won a Ford Frick Award at Cooperstown.
Yes, he did, Scott.
Yep. He was, obviously he was partnered with Joe Buck for a really long time. Say what you will about Joe Buck, but that's what he did. And it was him. Dick Allen, a very good player for a number of years, especially with the White Sox, were traded to the Phillies along with Curt Flood, but Curt Flood refused to go, challenging the reserve clause.
Really, no kidding. He was also partnered with Jack Buck, if I remember correct, right? Now Michaels.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that
number of times, yeah.
I think Al Michaels, didn't they have Jim Palmer on that crew as well?
Yes, he did. Jim.
Was he there for? I think he was there for Howard Cosell, right?
Well, anything was an upgrade over Cosell, so we'll leave it at that.
not a Cosell fan, Scott.
Well, now that you actually brought it up, I don't like the guy. And Eric, you do set me up pretty good. I only met Cosell one time at the Orange Bowl, I believe in the early 80s. I was covering a Miami Dolphins game on Monday night. And I'll never forget when I asked Howard for an interview, he said, "No, what a snobbish guy that this is." So my backup plan turned out to be my best plan. That was O.J. Simpson. And O.J. Simpson.
Oh, wow.
He was really nice to me. Hey, listen, you guys got to understand, when you're a young pup like I was, like 19 years old, and, O.J. Simpson tells you at the back end of this interview, you did a good job. Forget about what happened later.
He did do NBC Sports. I remember he did NBC Sports for a long time. And
he did a bunch of Avis commercials.
Yeah, he was. I mean, it was like the Naked Gun movies, and I mean, he was just a very likable guy.
Yeah, but listen, if you're a young broadcaster, and at that time, forget about what happened later. There's nothing to do with it. They're talking about me, Scott, the pup here at that point. Okay, what ended up happening was he helped me build some confidence. That's pretty cool that this guy was telling me I did a good job.
That's an upgrade.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was bombarding this guy with one follow-up after another, and I was young. Can you imagine adding another 40 years or so and another 50 to 100 pounds and a little bit of gray hair? I could have had a lot more. But no, OJ was a big help to me. But when you brought up Howard Cosell, Howard Cosell to me, everybody has a story about him. He doesn't earn good prompts as far as I'm concerned. Hello, Ralph Williams. Thanks for being a part of the show. We appreciate you very much for tuning in. So once again, Tim McCarver, rest in peace. I have a really loaded show here. But before I go any further, just want to let everybody know that 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. So, wherever you're at, you want to listen to it, that's how to do it. There's other ones out there. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Also, you know what? You want to be a guest, whether it's on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk or wherever, send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. And whatever your topic is, we'll match it up to that particular show. We'll be more than happy to have you on. The only thing we ask you to do is if you come on, please be a subscriber so you can get everything that you've recorded. And you can also download it for your records. Let people know you've been on our show. So there's always an opportunity for everybody out there. We're looking for good talent to blend with the core we have here as well. So we hope you take advantage. It's a very real, sincere way to get more and more people involved as we continue to grow the platform. With that said, okay, now that we got particulars out, got a lot of big names on this show to talk about, and probably a pretty good parting shot when you had guys like George Eichhorn and I. You definitely have stuff probably in the 70s. And again, the way Eric Katz knows everything anyways, you probably could have been born when we did. But Eric, that's a compliment, by the way, Eric, just so you know. Okay.
Thank you.
I've never seen a young 20-year-old have like a 50 or 60-year-old with the encyclopedia of a head that you have. So
if you look over to the left, I got a bunch of baseball books over there, so that's where I get it from. I haven't read them all, but I got a lot.
Well, I don't know. Just it's okay to fool Mother Nature, okay, because she gets upset, but don't think we fool you. The first time I met Katz, by the way, he kept me on the phone 4 or 5 hours, and I thought my arm was going to fall off. He knew so much. I knew he was a direct fit to come in here on a Saturday night, and here he is, still sticking with the program. All right. With that said, Miguel Cabrera is entering his final year. All right, George Eichhorn, you're a resident Detroiter. What kind of a year is Miggy going to have?
I don't know. He's going to have fun. He's playing it real loose and relaxed. He met the media the other day down in Lakeland, Florida, the longtime spring training home of the Tigers. And he said something to the effect of, one of the reporters asked him about, going and getting his farewell tour and gifts from all these stadiums and teams. And he said, I've gotten a lot of gifts already, a lot of hits from those teams. He says, I'm not looking for gifts and a farewell tour. He's committed. He wants the team to win, and his focus is on helping the team. With that being said, I hope he has a great send-off and a great year. I don't know. He certainly can't hit for power anymore, but he certainly is a great influence in the locker room, Scott. So I'm looking for big things from Miggy again to help the youngsters, the younger Tigers along the way this season. And I just look at it as a bonus. If he moves up in certain categories, such as hits or home runs or RBIs or whatever, that's a bonus. But clearly his baseball skills have eroded during the past few years. But it'll be a fun year for him. I know the team is planning a lot of surprises.
Yeah, if I remember properly, I believe he has 3,088 hits along with 507 home runs. So,
yeah.
He's only basically 12 hits away from 3,100. Hello, Jennifer Matthews Lewis. How are you? Good to see you again, young lady. Looking forward to seeing you on Sideline Stuff. We'd love to have Sideline Sports as a great partner. Jennifer Matthew Lewis is absolutely one of the better ones they have out there. JB Ellis, Jacob Christner, the list goes on and on. So glad to have our partnership with them. But yeah, I think he has 3,088 hits to go along with 507 home runs. So it's just a matter of not just patting on the numbers, but like you say, his locker room presence is holy moly, awfully good. All right, Mr. Opinion, give me an opinion on Mickey.
Well, Hall of Famer, no doubt, one of the greatest right-handed hitters I've seen in my generation, along with Albert Pujols. No doubt Hall of Famer, Triple Crown winner. Never thought I'd ever see a Triple Crown. I think that's what's more impressive to me with Miguel Cabrera is he won a Triple Crown. I mean, it's so rare that people thought it was horse racing. I said, no, they actually have a Triple Crown in baseball. It's just very rare. And it's been done since Carl Yastrzemski back in the 60s. So great.
67.
Yeah, 67. Great career. What's more to say? He's just, like I said, kind of is like a farewell tour. I know he doesn't want to see it, but they will do some kind of thing for him there. He's just a lovable guy, and I wish him the best. It'll be great. Maybe he'll rejuvenate and kind of like Albert Pujols did when he was with the Cardinals. Everyone got so excited when I don't know if it'll happen, but it'll be kind of nice if that does. But whatever happens, whether he hits 100, batting average of 100, nobody's gonna care. This is just kind of wrapping up his Hall of Fame career. So, and he's just a funny, lovable guy. I love his antics on there. He's like a little kid when he plays the game. He just loves the game of baseball. So it's gonna be fun to see him play, and he'll be missed definitely.
Just to show you how far you really come along as a journalist, Curdy, when you first started out, you were greener than the hat you're wearing. To think you would even come up with an analogy of a triple crown between horse racing and baseball, boy, you really have come a long way.
I saw it on Twitter. I saw.
No, give Claire the credit. Take credit for yourself. I know we use Twitter. Come on, Curdy. I don't care where you saw it. Just own it and say you said it, and I'm giving you a compliment. Let's see if you can handle it. But yes, okay, Rick. I love the analogy, folks, to see now that he put the triple crown in horse racing along with baseball. That was awfully good. And that's something, Eric Katz, can you top Rick Curdy with a one-liner also? You know what? Will Vogel has some comments, and they are very, very pertinent. So, all right. So you know what? Before, Eric, you get to comment on them, you get to go ahead and read Will Vogel's comments about Miggy. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, Miggy will be a DH this year, which I did definitely, because the guy will probably I know he'll probably make some appearances at first base for sure, because that's kind of what they do with guys who are late in their careers but still got a bat. But yeah, he'll probably definitely DH for the most part. And be a mentor young players. Yeah, I see it. He's the Tigers have gotten significantly younger since he's been there. So I think the roster is aside from Javier Baez, the roster is basically has turned over as it should be, because that team's kind of a little bit of a mess right now. I think mentoring young guys, I think that's fair. I think he'll be a DH for the most part too, but I think he'll be making some appearances at first base.
Very good. Well, the higher brass has actually been talking a little bit about you today. There is a distinct possibility we'll bring on a show. We just don't exactly know when. So, you've been a really good contributor in the chat room. We'll give you another opportunity to express your wares at some particular point on the show. Hopefully when we invite you, we look forward to seeing you on the air. You'll be comfortable. We'll make whoever is on there will make you very comfortable. Well, you do a good job on there, but boy, you're a huge asset in the chat room, and nobody probably knows it more than Jordan Long. But Jordan, give me your thoughts about Miguelcabrera.
Like Ray Curdy said, he's a Hall of Fame baseball player. He's done everything you could ask as a baseball player. He won a World Series in 2003. He's been an All-Star, and I do agree with Will that he's going to be a DH. He's going to mentor the young players. It was just his time. I mean, I was surprised that last year wasn't his last year, but this year certainly is. It's just going to feel weird to watch Tigers games without Miguel Cabrera, but hats off to him. I mean, the best way to end a career in the World Series, I just don't think they're there yet for Detroit. But either way, though, as long as he's having fun, mentoring the young kids, that's all that matters.
Well, the reality, Eric, is you're right. The Tigers are not in a great shape. They regressed a little bit last year, but why do you think they brought in general manager Scott Harris from the Giants?
I like that move. I think
it was a really shrewd move too, and they certainly have done bolstering the front office. Go ahead, Eric.
I think Al Avila, he did a good job there. I just think the guy finally hit his ceiling, and his biggest sin was he just couldn't put the thing back together.
Right.
And
you're right, but I really am intrigued by the Scott Harris hire, probably more so than what Al Avila did. So we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, with obviously with Miggy, I think Miggy's just looking to have fun this year. That's all he's looking at. I mean, of course he's going to say he's committed to winning, because what else is he going to say?
Listen, he's going to have fun. What's the worst thing in the world if you can go out there now and have fun, but maybe at least have a 500 team?
He's literally he's playing with. I mean, keep in mind too, the Tigers had a lot of people injured last year, and I think if Javier Baez can find his plates to discipline again, I think the Tigers will be better.
Right. Well, you know what?
No.
I think and George would probably know it better than anybody because you're there directly in Motown. But if the Tigers can get close to 500 with Scott Harris in charge, I think it would be a great step forward. So,
It would be, yes,
yeah.
if they
So,
can do that. Yeah.
all right. So, anyways, one of the big questions here, and well, I have a really good bunch of stuff that'll fall in everybody's wheelhouse, but especially yours, Rick, because you got some timely opinions beyond your triple crown analogy. But we're gonna lead. We're gonna lead off. Yeah, that's one of the appropriate adjectives that we do use in baseball. Okay, because where will Shoheiohtani be 1 year from now? We don't need anything elaborate. Maybe a few predictions with a little bit of an opinion. All right, Rick, go ahead. Where's he going to be next year? Will
He is going to the New York Yankees. I mean, with that short porch right there, man, that guy will hit like 60, 70 home runs. They want the big splash. They want the big names out there. I just think he'll go to the Yankees. Why not? Ruth, Garrett, Mantle, DiMaggio. I mean, Jeter. I go on and on. Just legendary. That's where everybody wants to go. They're playing the big bright lights of the Yankees. I don't see the Dodgers. I totally see him going to the Yankees. So that's where Ohtani will go.
All right, George, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't, it's hard to argue with that, Rick. The Yankees certainly have deep pockets, as do the Red Sox and Phillies and the Dodgers and some other teams. But I don't know. The thing is can they afford it? Yeah, they can afford it. They'll be over the tax and everything. But it's hard to say no to that. It really is, because they want a big star. They always want the stars in New York. Let's face it, the Yankees, that's part of their allure, part of their history, monument wall. And I'm gonna say the same thing. The Yankees.
All right, you know what? I love Will's comments are timely with Eric. You know what, Eric? We're gonna have you. If Will keeps on the roll that he's on, you're gonna read his comments. Provide your own. All right, round two with you, Eric. Read them.
Okay. I think Ohtani will. Tied to the Dodgers, I see it because this offseason they were incredibly restrained. Like they didn't really go for the big move. They let Trey Turner go. They kind of played it in-house a little bit, developed the farm a little more. But I could see them that they were preparing to try and make a run at Ohtani. I've heard Ohtani, doesn't really want to play on the East Coast, and he obviously being, California's proximity to Japan's a lot closer than New York. I think, I could see the Dodgers taking a stab at him. The Dodgers are built to win. They're a contender for better or worse. I mean, say what you will about them letting Trey Turner go, but they got a really nice young shortstop right now who I think is ready to make an impact there. And I just see it being the Dodgers. I mean, everybody says the Yankees, everyone says the Mets, but the question is, does he want to face that New York Heat? Because right now he's playing carefree with the Angels, who nothing in their minor league system, and all they have to show for it is him and Trout.
Right. Good points. All right, Jordan.
I have to go with the Dodgers. It just makes a lot of sense. Like Eric said, he doesn't want to go to the East Coast. I could see why Rick thinks he's going to go to New York because they're going to throw a lot of money. But honestly, if he wants to stay in the West Coast, it's the Dodgers because they're going to build a team around him. He's never been to the playoffs. So if you want to stay in the West Coast, it makes sense for the Dodgers.
Yeah, conventional wisdom would tell you the Mets and the Yankees for some reason or another, the way the New York media is, and Steve Cohen definitely has deep pockets. But you know what? As much as I'd like to think the Dodgers, I wouldn't rule out the San Diego Padres.
That's a good landing spot too.
There's also the uncertainty though with the Mets because I know that MLB is trying to reform, which I think is wrong, trying to reform Steve Cohen from spending as much as he spends, which I have no issue with the amount of money the guy spends. I think it's good that he shows that he cares. I really do, and I am the biggest Mets hater there is. Well, I call him New York Junior for a reason.
Okay, well that's funny. Go keep going.
But I know that they're going to try and make a move. But the thing about it is, MLB is trying to kind of put a latch on it. But obviously Cohen's got the money. I mean, the NFL did it to Jerry Jones. So if a big league like the NFL could stand up to Jerry Jones, MLB can definitely do that to Cohen. I mean, it's the rules. I mean, I just think it's a good thing Cohen's spending the money that he's spending. I think it's great for baseball.
Yeah, but then they have a tax out there basically that they call it the Steve Cohen tax. I mean,
Well,
you think this guy really cares about paying it? But I don't know. I'll go back to my feelings again. The Dodgers. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
His net worth is what he's paying his players now is not even a quarter of what the guy's net worth is. If you want to go there,
I don't know where I'm going. I'm just saying I thought they had a tax there basically.
They do.
Steve
and he blew through it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's another story. Blew through it, but they still have it.
Yeah.
But getting back to my conventional wisdom, and I'm certainly we're just throwing opinions and speculation. So if you think that we are the what's his name, Jeff Parsons out there, we're not. But keep that phone working there, Eric. Okay. But again, conventional wisdom would think that the Yankees and the Mets, and of course, if you win in New York, you're headed to the Hall of Fame much quicker than you aren't. But the Dodgers make sense because you don't have to leave the area. But I don't know, for some reason or another way, San Diego doling out some money. I would still not rule them out and go with your guys' conventional wisdom to stay on the West Coast. But that said, I'm going to have a segue, okay, to San Diego. And that Manny Machado is opting out at the end of the 2023 season. He's seeking a 10-year deal at $400 million. And I'm going to turn my head. This is a topic that I really, Rick, incorporated because of you, so you get first crack at it.
Okay. No, I would not pay him that much money. I think he's hearing. I think he's got Daniel Jones's agent, who I think he wants like $45 million a year from the Giants. So maybe he's got that same agent as him. Somebody will pay him that money. I don't know. I don't think the Padres will pay him, but some desperate team definitely will pay him. So will he get it? Probably. Might get more, but I don't see the Padres doing it.
All right, George.
Well, Padres are obviously spending a lot of money. They're trying to build something good out there, and they have. I wish he would stay, but a lot of the guys just want to move around. They're seeking a better venue. They're seeking more money. It's a shame because I like Manny as a ball player. I don't particularly like when somebody that's in that kind of a contract situation demanding to be moved or out or trade me and all that. But again, I'm old-fashioned that way. I like to see stars. I like to see stars retain their identity, retain that jersey, retain that baseball cap. But Manny's going to do what he wants to do, and him and his agent, they're going to move him. Probably going to happen.
Okay, well, you know what, Eric? Guess what? You get double duty because Vogel's on a roll. So go ahead. You start with Vogel, and then you talk for yourself. All right, go ahead, Eric.
Well, yeah, I agree. He's not going to get a 10-year deal because the guy's already in his 30s. I mean, he wants to pay. You're seeing shortstop now be paid through their age 40th season, but the difference between those guys and Manny Machado is those guys are still in the prime of their career. So you can kind of command on the back end. Manny's already in his 30s where, you want the 10-year deal. Well, he's going to he'll have to play until he's 45, but then the team will take the debt. The team will have to take on a lot of dead money when the guy's done, plus the back end of those contracts, which ultimately never works out unless your name is Derek Jeter.
Right.
But the thing with Machado is obviously he saw what shortstop and third baseman were commanding on the free agent market this year. The difference is those guys are in the prime of their career. Manny Machado's at the point in his career where he's starting to exit the prime of his career, and his performance is going to tail off. It happens to all of these guys. That's just how it is. You cannot play the game forever, and I don't think Manny will find a better deal than San Diego. I know the Padres owner will pay money, as we've seen over the years with every free agency cycle comes around, and the guy's willing to dump money at guys like Xander Bogaerts into his age 40 season. He's willing to throw a 14-year contract at Fernando Tatis Jr., which is actually looking like a big mistake, but I digress. And he's willing to do it for guys like Yu Darvish, who I think is overrated, Sean Manaea, who I think is very overrated, and also Josh Hader, who's starting to kind of tail off a little bit. But Manny's going to be Manny. To be truthful, I liked how he's changed as a person, because originally I couldn't stand the guy. I thought he just did awful things. See Dustin Pedroia. But I think great ball player. I think at the end of the day he does want to win a championship, and it just hasn't happened yet. He's been to the playoffs multiple times, and nothing. And I think that's the big thing missing from his career, from his resume, is a championship ring.
Okay, Jordan, tough. What do you think?
I think honestly, if you look at it, 10 years, like Will Rick has said, and Rick, it's too long. Yes, he want a 10-year deal for $40 million a year, but the thing is I think he's trying to just get leverage to say, if you don't pay me, I'm going to go elsewhere. We know he's going to be a free agent. Would he like to stay in San Diego? Sure, but I do see him somewhere elsewhere. Where it will be, I don't know. I think this is just giving leverage to say, this is what I want. Now pay me. But it could be that with that leverage, he could end up with a 5-year deal. But I do think he does want a championship at the end of the day. So will that be, New York, somewhere where he could compete? Yeah, for sure. Question is how much do they really want to pay him? That's where it comes down to.
Yeah, Jordan, all you guys are really on point here. He wants a championship ring in the worst way. You get all the money in the world, but that ring, and taste the champagne championship, that's one thing. But do I think he's getting 10-year, $400 million? No. Okay. And why do I say not getting near 10-year, $400 million? Well, let's face it, unlike Latrell Sprewell, he has enough money to feed his family. So I had to go out there and throw that in the hell.
I remember that.
Come on, man. I got to throw the Latrell Sprewell. And we were talking to a guy that's not getting 10-year, but he's not getting that kind of money. Not when you see a guy that potentially, again, the key that we know in Detroit, and you know it as well, everybody here, that the back end of the deals are usually the bad part. You don't worry about the first 5 or 6 years, especially if you can stay healthy. And that's really where it gets tricky when it comes to baseball economics, is how it makes out on the back end. Let's face it. Think about it. Albert Pujols was a fraction of himself when he went to the Angels and didn't really play up to that contract on the back end. Don't get me wrong, he didn't do badly there. Certainly his better days were in St. Louis. So, all right, well, you know what? This is a topic I'm going to have a lot of fun with, and I mean a lot of fun with. So you ready? On February 20th, 1980, 43 years ago, Billy Martin was hired in the Billy Ball era and was born in Oakland, and he ended up managing the Oakland A's. Now, the A's record, in 1979 was 5,408. And, he emphasized bunting, the hit and run, strong defense, and durable starting pitching. Eric, I know you're going to say how many arms he burned out. No, don't go too far with that, because we already know. You could probably mention it unless Vogel's got something you have to repeat. And knowing him, he's probably researching it anyways. But I truly believe that Martin saved the A's from moving to Denver, because I know that Denver oil man Marvin Davis wanted to buy the team and wanted to move it there. But MLB said, no, I see Jordan nodding his head because he knows probably about it. But as a result, the record was 83-79. And in 1980, the greatest single season turnaround in MLB history. So you know what? I have no choice but to go out there and lead off with our Denver, Colorado correspondent, not Denver, but the guy that covers the Rocks, Jordan Long. Okay, do you know? First of all, I'm going to give you a 2-part question here, Jordan. Do you remember about the potential that the A's could have moved to Oakland?
I've heard that they could have moved to Colorado. Granted, I don't know a lot about the story, but then again, we ended up getting the Rockies in 93 as an expansion team. Would we have liked the A's? Of course we would have. Then we wouldn't have to do the expansion draft.
Right. Okay. So what are your thoughts about Billy Martin? I know it was probably a little bit before your time, but let's face the reality. Here's a guy that I think baseball missed. The New York Yankees benefited from him. That's why Eric Katz is going next. Okay. But go ahead. Let's face it. The Tigers had Billy Martin. The Texas Rangers had him. The Minnesota Twins, and the beat goes on and on. He was hired 9 million times by the Yankees. And of course, when I had an opportunity to interview George Steinbrenner at Fort Lauderdale Stadium, I asked him the easy questions. I got to the manager questions. He got rid of me like he got rid of Ted Koppel. So, I don't feel bad if you're going to cut me off an interview. At least be fair to everybody, and the boss did. And to me, it was just one of those kind of things where, hey, you know what? Nightline is just as good as the Detroit Monitor or the Hallandale Tigers, who I was working for at the time. But no, George for the most part was working. So, but all right, Jordan, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. But yeah, I know that the Oakland A's at one point were being considered as a possible move to Denver. We'll see how it turned out with the Rockies winding up there. Now, I think Oakland A's would have drawn well, and now we see that they are still having stadium issues, which will lead to Rick Curdy in a little bit. So I'll leave you for last. So any other thoughts about Billy Martin, Jordan?
I think it's pretty interesting that, you said he won 50 some games and they won 89. Is that correct?
Yeah, what happened was the team was 54 wins before he got there, and then he ended up turning around, which resulted in a large turnaround, just to get a little bit of history on that. So,
which is still amazing. I mean, 50 to 80, and you don't see that very often. And that really did save the Oakland Athletics from coming to Colorado. Yeah. But he was still a pretty good manager in his own right. So, I mean, it's still amazing that he was able to turn the Oakland Athletics around in 1 year.
Billy was one of those kind of guys that turned franchise around quickly, but wore out his welcome after 2, 3, 4 years. I think drinking ultimately did him in Oakland, but that was a good situation for a little bit of longevity compared to his other stops. All right, well, you know what? Why not have fun with the Vogel Cats combination? It's working. It's probably a little bit more of a conservative one for you, Eric, but go ahead.
He was a great manager, actually. I mean, George Steinbrenner hired him back 5 times. There's that Billy Martin's the sheer definition of you may hate him while he's around, but when he's gone, there's a part of you that misses him. He's the exact definition of that. But Billy, I did know that he went to Oakland. That was kind of in between his tours with the Yankees. Actually, he actually looked a lot healthier when he was managing the A's. Overall, especially because he didn't have to deal with the stress of George Steinbrenner. Actually became the GM at one point of Oakland. I did know that that the A's were trying to move. I know Colorado was one of the many places that they were trying to move, but MLB basically gave Charlie Finley they basically gave him the finger, saying not so fast. Which you can talk about Charlie Finley and Bowie Kuhn, but I digress there. Obviously Billy, obviously he actually got them to the playoffs against the Yankees, ironically enough, but the Yankees beat him, and it was a pretty bittersweet moment for him. I know that, and then eventually, Billy, like he does everywhere else he's gone, he wears out his welcome. They actually have a whole book about what he was doing with the Texas Rangers called Seasons in the Hell, which very funny book, by the way. But obviously Billy's drinking got in the way. I mean, it's a known fact throughout his career that he was an alcoholic. Obviously, they have stuff. Obviously, they don't have they didn't have the resources back then up until celebrities started doing it. But Billy was great for Oakland. He's from the Bay Area, so obviously bringing him back home was obviously to put the butts in the seats, and it did. But Billy's a winner. I mean, he burned out arm, but so did Dusty Baker. Actually, Ricky Henderson was on that team. Ricky actually loved him.
Yeah.
It's I think Billy was. I think with Ricky though, Billy was willing to let some things go as long as Ricky got on and did Ricky Henderson things.
That's true. I got to, before I turn over to George, I don't know if this is a story I should mention because it is kind of crazy, but when I got injured in a skiing accident on Christmas Day out in Magic Mountain in Londonderry, Vermont, I tore my ankle on my last run of the day on Christmas Day. And unfortunately, that was the day Billy Martin was killed in an accident that day. But the irony of the whole situation is every time I need to find out my medical records and they ask me about my medical history, then I always turn to that Billy Martin situation while I was in the hospital on that particular day with a busted up ankle. And I Google up Billy Martin is what I do. And at least I have that piece of information again. That was an unfortunate thing too, because I was really looking forward to getting into skiing in the New England, and I had researched a lot of ski resorts. And Londonderry, Vermont, was really a cool place. It's just what I ended up learning on that particular day, though, is I was going good until that last run of the day, and I didn't realize that I had leg fatigue, and all of a sudden, wound up on the middle of the mountain, I had to be airlifted down. But I was back eating dinner that night after they x-rayed me and determined I tore ligaments in my ankle. And I was in a cast probably for 6 probably like several, I think 5-6 months as it turned out, and ended up having knee surgery later on because I put so much pressure on my right leg. And I ended up going on a trip to Aruba, that company trip as well. So it's pretty hard when you have a fiberglass cast and sand in it. But that's for another little story, a few particulars. And also, I had an opportunity to interview Billy Martin in Fort Lauderdale at Fort Lauderdale Stadium with Zoom manager of the Yankees. And Billy treated me great. You know, you talk about some guys, training managers. Of course, everybody in spring training is a little nicer. I've had a lot of good spring training stories, but Billy was really nice to me. I have no problem with him whatsoever. And yeah, he did some good things. They were short. I still wish there was a way to get Billy in the Hall of Fame. I really do. And I know that he's buried in a cemetery. I believe the same one, Eric, is Babe Ruth, isn't he? I'm not sure exactly, but
he wrote on his gram, I may not have been the greatest Yankee, but I was the proudest, in typical Billy Martin fashion.
Good. When you come up with comments, that makes me even more proud of you than I already am, and that's awfully proud.
But yeah, they you know,
my
Billy,
let's talking. Just so you know, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Billy, you know, obviously, you know, there's a reason George bought him back 5 times. As much as the tabloids like to make it they didn't get along, which they didn't. Deep down, George loved him. That's why he brought him back, because George knew that, you know, who else is the winner. Everyone else, you know, with the exception of maybe Dick Hauser, they weren't the same. They just didn't win as frequently as Billy did.
Billy not only won, Eric, for crying out loud, they got the front page of the New York tabloids too. So, and they put rear ends in the seats. It was pretty. That's why they call it the Bronx Zoo. But you know, we got to give George Eichhorn a little time, because obviously Billy Martin did some pretty good things with the Tigers team that was past the World Series point. And you know, back in the early '70s, he did manage to get him to the playoffs, only to lose to the Oakland A's, right, George?
Yeah, and you know, when they first hired him here in Detroit, it was really out of the norm, because Jim Campbell, the general manager, and John Fetzer, the owner, were not known as being anywhere near radical. Right. And I considered the signing of Billy Martin as manager of the Tigers as pretty radical at the time.
Right.
But there were a lot of veterans. Woody Fryman and Duke Sims and you know, Jim Northrup was still around. There are a lot of veteran players here in Detroit at the time, and they sensed the need that Billy, and he did, brought them the division title. And like Scott said, they lost to Oakland in the playoffs. But yeah, Billy is a carouser. Billy has his reputation is notorious. I found it quite amusing the number of times that Steinbrenner would rehire him. In fact, they made a Bud Light commercial out of that. Yeah. You're fired. I'm fired. You know. Yeah, you're fired. Yeah, it was back and forth. It was a great commercial. But yeah, he was a character. He hung around with a guy in Detroit that owned the bar, Bill Reedy, and Bill was in the car that fateful day and night when that terrible accident happened. And there's a lot of speculation about who was really behind the wheel, but Billy had fun. Billy enjoyed his life. He lived it to the highest. And yes, he did have a chance to bring these teams and turn these teams around. That's why teams took a chance on him,
right?
Because he was a winner between the lines. Like if somebody once said, between the lines, there was nobody better, maybe at least that era, than Billy Martin.
Yeah, well, you talk about a veteran team. You had Al Kaline, Mickey Lowitz, Joe Coleman, Bill Freehan. The list goes on and on. So, without a doubt, yeah, he did. And I should say that George and I had Duke Sims on the show, and he actually had Billy Martin had Larry LeGros throw over at Bert Campaneris. So, you know, and Duke didn't have a problem doing it. Hey, you know, whatever Billy says for me to do, I'm going to do it. And you know, I once many years later talked about Bert Campaneris and asked him if when I was working at the Tampa Tribune, I have a few stops in my pocket too. And he regretted that the whole thing happened, that it got to a point. But let me tell you, you want to talk about a slap on the wrist. All Bert Campaneris did was get suspended the first week of the year and then played in the postseason. So if that isn't the biggest slap in the wrist of baseball history, I'd like anybody out here to go out there and let me know otherwise, because I truly do believe that it is the biggest slap on the wrist in baseball history. And with that said, before I turn over to Mr. Curdy, we're going to go out there and put it out there again. 108 Stitches can be baseball talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts audio wise. Go ahead and listen to us. please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We are striving for 1,000 subscribers. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. When we find that, but please subscribe as well so you can go out there and make sure that you can see your broadcast out there and download it. And then you'll have an opportunity to interact with any of us, regardless of what the show is. We'll make sure you have a wonderful time, prep you, so you sound the best you can. So please take us up on that offer. All of us are looking forward to meeting new people, expand. Please share the shows with your friends, family members, whoever. We would greatly appreciate it. Okay, now that I got that out, Rick Curdy, I'm sure you've had a chance to go out there and digest everything about Billy Bob, Billy Martin, anything Billy. Okay, what do you got, Rick?
He was a larger than life person, not just in baseball, but in all the sports. I just remember him all the times he got hired and fired. You know, that was the big joke. How many times Steinbrenner brought him back. But I agree with Eric. I think deep down inside, he really did love him, you know. And I'm surprised he's not in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
You know, I talk about Fred McGriff. I'm going to go on another rant. Billy Martin should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm surprised he's not. You know, it's been the Hall of Very Good lately. Scott Rowland, I'm just like, whatever. But Billy Martin should be in the Hall of Fame. He turned around teams, biggest turnaround in all of sports with the A's. And, you know, when he died, I remember when he died, it was sad to hear those breaking news. He died in a car accident.
Right.
And baseball lost a larger-than-life character. He's one of those people that you're glad he was gone, but then you missed him because he had that aura, and he was successful wherever he went. So, great. I think he was a great manager, very, very underrated. And I think he's more appreciated now than he was when he was living. So, but I think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
All right, so Rick, I'm going to throw a couple of hypothetical questions at you, okay? This is just
Okay.
strictly for you, okay? How do you think the Oakland A's would have done in Denver?
I don't know. I mean,
That's
it
a
would have been
long
interesting.
pause.
I think it would have taken a while for them to warm up to them there. I think it'd be a little different, but I'm glad they stayed. I think it was good that they stayed. I don't think it would have worked out at Denver.
Okay, fair enough. And we know that you've been outspoken on social media about the Vegas situation.
They're going to go. It's just
Right.
inevitable. I mean,
Right.
now you have a commissioner that's telling them go because they'll make billions and billions and billions of dollars if they go to Las Vegas. It's all about the money.
Yeah,
Whereas
but
Oakland, it's just nothing.
Curdy, you can't sit here and hide behind that camera and tell me you want him to go to Vegas because it gets Charlotte closer to the team. Come on, Rick.
Of course, once Oakland goes to Las Vegas,
Right.
once Tampa gets situated and they get their stadium, either it's insane, whatever happens, once those two are resolved, they'll expand.
Right, and I'll tell you what, like I said, I love Billy Martin, and I'm glad he did great things wherever he did. But I think one of his most impressive acts was what he did in Oakland, probably more so than any other stop. That's what I think. And you know what, Rick, from what I heard, and I've been watching more and more about social media, not on the TV as much as I used to be, because I have to tell you, during Super Bowl week, and I know Jordan Long, he did some good work out there during the Super Bowl. I enjoyed not watching TV. I'm just so sick and tired of being flooded with repetition. So I've been working the phone a little bit more. But I can tell you right now, the way things are really playing out there to me, Chris Russo went on the Dan Patrick show and admitted, to your point, Rick, that Scott Rowland ended up being the Hall of Very Good. And Chris Russo went ahead and done that. So
Fred McGriff, and I'm just befuddled why Helton is not in the Hall of Fame. He should be in there, not Scott Rowland. You look at his numbers. They're not Hall of Fame numbers. I like Scott Rowland, but he's not a Hall of Famer. It should have been McGriff, Helton, and Billy Martin needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry.
Good.
He's a great manager.
Good. You keep bringing up Billy Martin once in a while, and we're going to keep bringing it up and put you on the spot when the situation presents itself. Well, I've got really no choice in this broadcast but to defer to Eric first because it's a suggestion that he made. So I'm going to let Mr. Katz explain what I'm about to talk about. With that said, could this be it for Corbin Burnes in Milwaukee? EK, what do you say?
Given the scathing review he gave the other day, and given that, at the end of the day, the Brewers are the smallest market in Major League Baseball and have a hard time, and they can't retain their stars for long periods of time, except maybe one, maybe two. I really think it's the end. The Brewers didn't want to give him that money. They were about $750K apart, which I think is a little petty if you ask me. But ultimately, I think that it is the end. I personally have enjoyed seeing him pitch. I was at the game in 2021 when he struck out 13 hitters. I was at his playoff start in 2021, and I was able to see a little bit of him in 2022. I mean, just a dominant pitcher, just a very quiet blue collar guy. But I think that I think it is the end. It's been awesome. It's been real with him, but I think, but for what he's done in such a short time, back-to-back All-Star appearances, he's got a Cy Young to his name, as well as he led the league in strikeouts last year. The guy's going to be able to command. I don't think Garrett Cole and Max Scherzer dollars is accurate, because both of them were at the time just the most dominant pitchers in baseball up to that point. I think he's going to command a very high salary, and I just don't think the Brewers can afford it, and they'd be better off, depending on where they are in the playoff race. Don't do it when you're in first place. They'd be better off trading him for prospects. That team can develop pitchers like none other. They got a really nice pipeline down there. But they need hitters. They cannot hit. The only two guys in that lineup that seemingly hit, and it's either a home run or whatever, is Willie Adames and Rowdy Tellez. That's it. This team needs guys that can put the ball in play. It cannot be a home run or nothing team. It's why they fell off like they did, aside from when they traded Josh Hader, but their home run or nothing approach didn't help them.
Well, go ahead. I told you get double duty with Mr. Vogel, so go ahead.
I think Burnes is gone. Well, he's been on the trade block a while. He's been rumored, but the Brewers haven't. The Brewers weren't going to be stupid and trade him after a Cy Young year. I don't think he's been on the trade block that long. I think now things are starting to pick up, especially you got 2 years of club control. The Brewers can pretty much just empty someone's farm and potentially build something hopefully better. But I don't think he's been on the trade block that long. I think that this season could be a real determiner on what they decide to do, because I don't think they're going to get him back. But no, this is probably the first year where he's actually been seriously being, I'd say, hung out there for teams to kind of bite the bait.
Yeah, shopped a little bit is what you're probably referring to a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is the first. I mean, I'm sure he's come up in conversations. I'm sure teams have checked in on him, see what's happening. But this is the first time where I'm starting to think a for sale sign is going to be in his backyard.
Fair enough. Okay, Jordan.
I have to agree with Eric. I mean, you don't trade him right now. Yes, he's on the trade block. This is definitely the end for him. I think you wait until the All-Star break, maybe past that, just to see where the Brewers are, and if they're starting to go south, then you'll pull the trigger to at least get some prospects. You would like about, like Eric was saying, they need offense, but he's definitely not coming back. And it surprises me because he's won, 10-plus games the last 2 years. But then again, it's the Brewers. They're a small market. He needs to go to a bigger market where he can actually, make better money. Like Eric said, they were, apart in money, and that's really he wants money. You want to get paid. Yes, he's pitching well, but you want to get paid, and that's what the bottom line is. He's going to get that with the Brewers.
What do you think, George?
Well, it reminds me of the Tigers. You talk about a market the size, what Milwaukee is going through, and the Tigers, of course, losing Scherzer, losing JV, Verlander, and it's sad because these teams, like Eric was saying, if they can't afford them, then there's a good chance they're going to lose them. And I feel bad because the fans, I know, have an identity with players such as him, and we did here in Detroit with losing Verlander and and Scherzer, and we still haven't recovered from that. And that was due in part because of some skeptical or shady, I would call it, talent that we acquired in the trade, especially for Verlander.
Right.
But that being said, I mean, Milwaukee they got a lot of problems there, and like you guys were saying, they need to get some hitters, and he certainly would bring back a lot. And I think you're right, Jordan. I think you wait until the All-Star break or around that time before the trading deadline. But you got to make a good trade because you got to get a good haul in return, unlike what the Tigers did for JV.
What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely gone. I mean, Milwaukee's the smallest city that has Major League Baseball. very small market, very blue collar. They're always that little train that could, where a lot of people are like, they don't have it, but then they'll surprise you. But they're just not good enough yet to have won a World Series. But he's gone. He definitely wants to go. He wants more money. They're not going to pay him. So, I mean, he needs to go to a bigger market. I see the Dodgers pulling the trigger. I can easily see that. And I think it will be by the All-Star break. If Milwaukee's struggling and he's doing really well, they're going to trade him away. And I see the Dodgers getting him.
Yeah, I mean, I look back at last year's trade deadline when the Brewers traded quite a few players, so it makes me have a lot of doubts whether or not the Brewers can keep them. I'm dealing with a similar situation in Miami where hopefully at some point the Marlins will be able to retain a lot of their better players and they don't trade them when they're arbitration ready. Because, I do believe that Miami, let's not kid yourself, say what you want about the Miami Marlins, but they do have 2 championships in their pocket. One they bought and the other one they developed. And I'm anxious to meet the new manager, Skip Schumacher. I haven't yet because I've been so tied up over the last 12 weeks between Daytona Beach, Milwaukee, and Jacksonville. So I'm still trying to figure out where I sleep on the weekend, but that's for another day. But yeah, again, I only go back to what happened at last year's trade deadline. You certainly want to get good value, as everybody's been talking about, but so you have to see where you're at, and maybe they can come to some sort of a compromise. But boy, you just don't get somebody upset now and have him talking about you, because then you got his mind thinking that, hey, I worked hard for you guys. You're not paying me what I'm worth, or at least even if you got a team-friendly deal for a lot of years, which a lot of guys are getting, some of these guys are just looking for some stability. So, every franchise, especially we see it in hockey, where although obviously the baseball pay scale is a bit higher, where they're adding 8 to 10 years. Now, do you do that with a pitcher? That's another story with the type of arm troubles you could have. But he certainly didn't win any. The Brewers did not win any friends by not paying him, and he feels there's a little bit of loyalty there. Who knows? He might end up winding up with a team with no state income tax either. That'll put a couple of dollars in your pocket. But we know that Wisconsin does have some sort of a taxability out there. So I don't know. I'd like to see the Brewers keep him, but I kind of have my doubts. I'm only referring back to what happened last year at the deadline. So we'll see how it plays out. So, all right. Well, it's the type of part of the show where we have part and shot. So you know what, Mr. Opinion, this time you lead off.
Well, Major League Baseball, I understand what they're doing. They want to get the younger people involved. Baseball's too slow, but the robot, strike calls, the big bases. I think someone said they look like pizza boxes.
Oh, that was Cora.
It's just why. I don't understand why. I actually went to a game where it was called by like a computer, and it's not a robot. Actually, the umpire has an earpiece and a computer, and somewhere in the office calls it balls and strikes. They relay it back to him, and he calls strike one. That's how it's done. It's not an actual robot, and I hated it. It delayed the game. The balls and strikes were all over the place. It's very inconsistent. There's just some things you need to keep simple. There's some things that need to be run by human beings, and that's what needs to be run by human beings. I understand different umpires have high balls and high strikes, low and inside, outside, whatever. Maybe they can get together and be a little bit more consistent with it. But the robots, the bigger bases, and please get rid of this stupid ghost runner Major League Baseball. It's stupid. I understand why you're doing it, but you're making baseball stupid, and it's going to become silly now, and I don't want that to happen.
Okay, George, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to give some hats off. You mentioned it earlier, Scott Harris, and even though he doesn't have the title of general manager, he's president of baseball operations, but he's running the show. And to see that young man around the batting cage in Lakeland, Florida, and to see him handle himself as well as he has with the press and the media from Detroit these last few weeks, I am very impressed. Hats off to Chris Ilitch of the Tigers for bringing Scott Harris over, and I'm hoping for good things with him. He's already brought the fences in a little bit at Comerica Park, which needed to be done. He's replaced all the light bulbs. I know it sounds funny, but Detroit was one of the last teams in the league to go with the brand new LED lighting, even though that stadium has been around since 2000. So they finally changed all the light bulbs. But let's hope the big light bulb goes off in Scott Harris's mind and that he acquires the talent he needs. He's been scouring for talent for the past several months since he's been hired. It's going to be a long season in Detroit, but I think you got a good man there. Hopefully, the right man to lead this team in Scott Harris. That's my parting shot.
Okay, you know what? You get double duty again, Eric. So we'll get Willis. You can comment on this one on your own. Then you can take your parting shots. Go ahead, Eric.
I don't like robot umpires. Well, I don't like them either. I'd probably pour my drink on them. They bigger bases. I think they're a little too big, but the bases they had. I mean, I think just with the way the fields are now, it's very easy to slide over what the bases were. So I think it's. I'm going to say it was a little more fairer, just because instead of natural grass and now things have become more things. There's more turf now than ever. So I think there's a little. I think that's fair. Let's. So basically, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, especially with the shift gone, that we could see the more complete hitter come back now where they can lace it to all fields, and we'll see a guy win a batting title who's batting a little higher than 315. But personally, I think the bases are fair. I just think that with the way the fields are now, they kind of had to make them bigger. But I want to say, though, the Brewers blaming Corbin Burnes for not going to the playoffs. I don't think it's not all on Burnes. I mean, everybody, especially their offense, he literally was pitching it with graveyard hitters who it was either home run or nothing.
Right.
So I can't really, and Burnes led the league in strikeouts, at least the National League in Ks. I can't, why would you want to pin all the blame on him? He was not the reason you did not go to the postseason. The reason you didn't go is you didn't hit, and you decided to trade one of your clubhouse leaders, which absolutely deflated the locker room, which if you want to blame anybody, yeah, you could. I guess you could knock the leadership there a little bit, I guess. But the guy you want to blame is Christian Yelich. He was the guy. He's the guy making all the money. He's supposed to bring that locker room together, and he didn't.
Okay.
So there's your guy to blame. I mean, yeah, we love Christian Yelich, but if I'm going to knock a guy for last season's issues where they had opportunities to get the final wild card spot, I'm knocking Yelich.
That's fair. Okay, Jordan.
Well, the Colorado Rockies, as you know, they haven't been very successful, but I will say this. Owner Dick Monfort, many, many years has said the Rockies are going to win 95 games. Well, we've never won 95 plus in our history. Closest we came was 91 in 2018. And for whatever reason, he's finally drinking the Kool-Aid. The Rockies aren't going to be that good. He's finally realizing this team may be a 500 team. I don't know what's changed, but finally you're realizing that we're not a good baseball team. Took you this long. Finally.
Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they give Bud Black a 1-year extension as well?
They did.
Okay. I was wondering. All right, well, I got a parting shot like no other because you guys stayed on the baseball stuff. So you ready for this one? It's real good, but there's a little bit of baseball involved in this one. My parting shot actually is that the NFL fined Marshawnlynch $1.2 million for not talking to the media. And now he's at Amazon. Guess what? Steve Carlton didn't talk to him either, but MLB wasn't finding anybody there. He just got sick and tired of the Philadelphia media. But my spring training story was when I got smart, okay, and I knew I couldn't talk to Steve Carlton. I went after a guy by the name of Von Hayes, who was traded in a multiplayer deal. And when one of the fans out there and yelled criticism toward Von Hayes, that's when I started my wheels were turning even as a pup. And Von Hayes was a very good interview in the past. So, it's amazing how a guy like Marshawnlynch can go ahead and get fined $1.2 million, which he probably made it all up on those commercials anyways, and then some and with Amazon. But you know what? What the heck? Baseball's back. I wanted a lighthearted parting shot, and as I always look, I said, you know what? This is an ideal one. And you know what? For tomorrow night when we do the Sports Exchange on Wednesday night, I'll give you guys a little teaser out there. I'm bringing this on as a topic for the crew to talk about tomorrow night. Tonight, it was my parting shot to introduce it to you guys. All right. So why not, Marshawn? But now that you're one of us, at least, you know what? Now you treat us the way as colleagues instead of adversaries. So, with that said, we're going to start off with Jordan. Let everybody know they can hold it.
You can find me at SportsScoop1 on Twitter. You can find me obviously here on 108 Stitches on Tuesday nights. And anywhere I need to be on the Sideline Sports Network, I'm on many, many shows. As for me, I have a blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com.
Go ahead, Eric.
You can find me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can find me on the blog I write for, Belly Up Sports, where I write all about all things baseball.
Okay, Rick.
You can find me on my website, www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there. Please sign it. We're trying to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB, Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Instagram at Charlotte Bats, and I'm on Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball. And I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curdy. If you have any comments or questions, my email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
All right, George Eichhorn.
This is the book that you all need to get a copy of if you want to learn about Detroit sports broadcasting. And Ernie Harwell, Ty Tyson, Ray Lane, Van Patrick, Bob Reynolds. We've had some great guys really in our broadcast history. There's a link to purchase my book at the South Florida Tribune website. I write under the Motor City Tribune. And also I write for the Detroit Monitor. You can reach me on Yahoo at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can reach me on Twitter too at SanGSports99. And Scott, you are in this book. I know when you interviewed Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Connors, two of the greatest names in modern sports history, and you got your start here in Scott, as you and I in Detroit. I mean, as you and I both did at the old WXYZ ABC owned and operated.
Yeah, George and I have only been together 43 years. That's all. So what the heck?
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know,
what color was your hair, Scott?
Well, you really want to know? It's gray. Okay, Eric. I mean, you're asking me a question that's obvious, but there's still some there. The haircuts do come into place once in a while. So.
I'm talking when you started, before you.
Oh, definitely. Let's see.
It was brown.
Yeah, it was definitely dark brown. There was a lot of it. I had to get haircuts for a long time. My late mother went ahead, and there you go.
Oh, look at that! Look at that guy.
Yeah.
Look at that guy. It's long hair. It has the same. Wow, you look pretty good.
George got the flashing lights on there. He's in Hollywood, but yeah, my mother used to cut it, and then I had her successor cut it, and they were doing a good job. I don't have to get it cut as much, but I still do it every now and then. So who knows? As far as our contact information, you've seen the email address all night, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. My Twitter information is @TribuneSouth. And I'll go ahead and read this one more time or for those that you are listening to us or that are watching us, that Inside 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Good stuff, man. You guys are fantastic. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, southfloridatribune.com. We are striving for 8,000 subscribers. And last but not least, I'll say it one last time. I hope the repetition doesn't disturb you folks. But if you want to be a guest, send southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And you know what? You send it to us, and I'll put you on a show wherever your comment fits in. Special kudos to Candy Ebling, who does an outstanding job with the South Florida Tribune. Our website is, by the way, www.southfloridatribune.com. So hope I've given it all to you. I don't think I've really missed anything. The only thing I've missed is doing the show for a little while because football took over for a while. But now, you know, as in the old archives of Gene Hackman on Hoosiers, this is your team. So get used to us. And hey, I what can I say? I'm the only one that came up with a non-baseball thing until I plugged Carlton in the end. And now I get a basketball, and everything that was good about basketball is Hoosiers. Don't ask me how many times I've watched it because you know what? I don't know, but it was awfully good. And I probably burned through a few VCR tapes anyways when they were making them. And now I get to see it on digital. So we'll leave it at that. So meanwhile, great job by my crew tonight. These guys are absolutely, in the eyes of Dick Vitale, awesome, baby. Hope that doesn't kill you too bad. But anyways, on behalf of Rick Curdy, George Eichhorn, Eric Katz, Jordan Long, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Man Mile. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. And if you're watching, yes, I am wearing a Durham Bulls hat because I definitely feel it's one of the best movies that they've ever made. And yes, Eric, I know you've been watching it lately. So good segue, my friend. So while we look forward to next Tuesday night, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. More shows coming during the week, so stay tuned. So Once again, on behalf of my crew, this is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us. We will catch you next time. God bless and be safe out there. Good evening, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.